All right, we're in our final look at Dante, and we're going to go through the conclusion of the Inferno, and then go to Purgatorio, and then go to Paradiso. So Dante takes 3 days, and however many cantos that is, 100, to get through his Divine Comedy. I've got one class. And we'll end up in paradise, though, so it's got to be a good thing. But I wanted to show you a depiction of the geography of hell and of Purgatory and Paradiso. It's not in your text, I don't think. I don't think it has the sort of maps and so forth. I wanted to give you a sense of this. So what Dante's thinking about, so he's writing in Florence, right? But he's visualizing, when it's been visualized, he's thinking of a theological statement about hell. And with that, he is also thinking about where the mouth of hell would reside. And the mouth of hell is actually in Jerusalem. And it's surprisingly in a place, has anyone ever been in the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, in the temple there? Do you know what I'm talking about? You might not know what I'm talking about when I refer to the Dome of the Rock. Even let me come to this for a second. If I show it to you, I think you will know. Or recognize it at any rate. This place in Israel. You seen this before? Maybe you haven't. Right in the middle of it. Well, in the midst of this building here, this one right here, right in the center of you go into it, which is right in the middle of the what was considered to be the temple. The Jewish temple had been established there. Now it's a Muslim mosque. But in the midst of all that, if you go inside, I have been in there, there's something that's rather surprising. And it's a big rock. A big, giant rock. And when I say giant, it probably goes from this side of the room to this side of the room. It's that big. That rock is the rock on which Abraham offered up Isaac as a sacrifice. And that's in the midst of this temple. That rock is also the rock on which it was the threshing floor of what's his name? Jonah, I'm forgetting his name, the Jebusite, when David took a census of Israel and the Lord brought plague upon, was destroying, and it stopped right at the threshing floor. There's a rock on the mouth, and the I don't know, this is not a theological one, it's almost mythological. The rock there is considered to be a stopper on the mouth of hell. Right where Abraham went to sacrifice Isaac and the Lord provided a ram in substitute, and right there in the midst of where Israel, the plague against Israel was averted, right there at that same stone. And the stone on the mouth of hell is to some degree a significant stone. It's a rock. And you could see a sort of a significance of Christ, the rock there, putting a stop to that, a stopper on it. But that is considered to be, that's why here, I didn't say that just to distract you here, when we get this portrait of Jerusalem here in these images, I'll give you another one here. Jerusalem is seen at the top of that. On the other side of the earth is Mount Purgatory. It's popped up. All the earth that's been displaced here gets pushed down to the other side of the earth, and a mountain pops up. How did hell get created? Well, it's when Satan fell like lightning from the heavens and he hit the earth, and he goes down right into the middle, the center of the earth, and all that earth gets displaced on the other side in Mount Purgatory. Now, this is not a empirically verifiable statement. It's more of it's an idea. It's a symbol of what's going on. But I say this because at the bottom of Dante's Inferno, we will find Satan right there at the bottom of all hell, as it gets narrower and narrower and deeper and colder, and the what began as hot air and then cooled down to the point where now everything's encased in ice and all the space is shrunk. We find that Satan is there. And he's there, and that the right at the very bottom, and Dante is going to have to climb by him in order to get to ascend. And it seems to still be going down. But we'll find when he gets there, it flips around and he's suddenly climbing upwards, and say, how did that happen? And that is how it's happened in some ways. So it's again, he's using a poetic account to describe something here. So he's descending, he gets to the very bottom, which is Satan's bottom, and at that point he ascends upwards. Well, I'll come to that in a second. I'll give you another depiction of that here. So it's right here. So that's actually the Jerusalem there at the top, held down, and at the very bottom, this is Satan here. So this is the realm of the lustful, the realm of the violent, and the realm of the fraudulent, and at the very bottom of that, the traditori, the traitors, and of all of the traitors, the most treacherous of all of them, Lucifer. The traitor of traitors is at the bottom of that. The worst of all sinners. The worst of all those who have defied God's justice and his love is he. So he is at the bottom of that, and as I say, the earth that was hit when he went down to the very bottom, to the bottom of the pit of hell, has been displaced on the other side to this Mount Purgatory, which Dante saw right at the beginning. Now, how can he see it when it's on the other side of the earth? Well, don't. Right? It's supposed to be don't think about that. It's a poetic account. It's not meant to be literal. He's imagining it to be the case. I'm just presenting this to you so you get a sense in your mind's eye what's going on here in these cantos. So and I'm going to go rather quickly here through to canto, the 34th canto, and get to this account of the so in canto 32 he comes to the river Cocytus, which is now a lake of ice. In scripture it's called a lake of fire, right? The lake of fire. Here it's presented as ice. Dante's not trying to contradict the scriptural account. He's giving it an account in accordance with the physics of his day. So it's a scientific statement. It's not meant to contradict that. And this is the base of all the universe. And it's a place where all human feeling and sympathy has been eliminated. So Dante himself has no more sympathy for those who are being punished. These are the fraudulent. By the way, it might be of interest. Why are the fraudulent considered to be the worst sinners of all? Like, why not the lustful? Or not, we would probably say the violent. How about those who've taken others' lives? They're clearly, Dante regards them as terrible, but these are the violent here. They're in the middle hell. They're not in the lowest pit. The lowest pit is reserved for those who have been fraudulent. What does that say about Dante's understanding of the nature of certain types of sins? Why are certain types of sins considered to be worse than others? Because he certainly is suggesting a pecking order, as it were, of depravity. Well, it's because fraud deceives people in the truth, and it deceives. You don't just murder one or even tens of thousands, which you can do. Truth will deceive you of the nature of God himself. It corrupts the inner part of a person and not just the outer. You can take a person's life, and yet their soul will still be saved, right? But if you defraud their minds and lead them into false doctrine, they will be in error about the nature of God and their relationship to God. So fraud is considered to be the worst of all sins by Dante, and is punished accordingly, right down at the bottom. I think that in this, Dante actually is closer to Scripture than most Christians. Many Christians think that killing is the worst thing that you could do to a person. Right? In the pacifist tradition, there's a strong emphasis on that. Less strong emphasis on the importance of truth. Remember, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Apprehending him rightly. But Dante gets it right here. Now, when he comes down here in the realm of the traditori, this is the Italian here, the realm of the traitors, there are four divisions within the ninth circle. There are those of Cain, the sin of Cain. These are traitors against the family. There is the Antenora. These are traitors against their country. their nation. In the third deepest, there is the Ptolemea, PT. These are traitors to their hosts, like Macbeth was to King Duncan. He betrayed his host. He actually betrayed a member of his family and his country as well, so you can betray multiple of these. But now he's betrayed his hosts, and think about the realm of how hospitality, even in the Odyssey, how important hospitality is. This is somebody who is offering you something you don't deserve, taking care of you when you are vulnerable. This is considered a grievous sin, but the worst of all is the realm of Judeca. Traitors to their master. Now this reflects Dante's age to some degree, but it's also a theological point. The greatest traitor of all is Judas. So Judas Iscariot, we're going to find, is down here as well, in this realm. And he's being chewed by Satan in one of his 3 mouths. We'll come to that right now. This is the realm of the 34th canto, so let me come to this. And I'll read a fair bit of this before moving on to Purgatory and Paradiso. But the 9th circle, the 4th ring, is called Judeca, where traitors against their benefactors are fully covered by ice. So it's not just traitors, it's traitors against those that do them well. Betrayal is one thing, but against those that actually have done you a good thing, that's a wholly different thing. Now they're wholly covered by ice, and Lucifer, who's also called Dis. Now Dis, D-I-S, is also used, a word poetically that's used of the underworld in general. Sometimes used of Pluto as well, he's called Dis. Here it's specifically referred by the Christian poet Dante to Lucifer. Lucifer is hell. Which is interesting when we come to Milton's Paradise Lost, because he describes, Milton to some degree talks about the internal recesses of Satan's minds as hell. He himself is hell. And he also claims, because he thinks, because it's within his mind, he thinks he can think other thoughts and escape it. But we'll come to that when we look at that next semester. But he is associated with this. Now, he has 3 mouths. So there's something of the Trinity here in this, sort of an infernal reference to an anti-Trinitarian figure. And in his 3 mouths, he is chewing and rending, because he not only is chewing them in his mouth, he's rending them with talons, 3 figures. One of them is Judas. The other is Brutus, who stuck the knife in Julius Caesar. He wasn't the only one, but Marcus Brutus, who in many traditions of Western literature is accounted a hero, because Julius Caesar was an emperor. He was going to rob people of liberty, and Brutus stabbed him to preserve liberty. So in different accounts, often in English accounts, Marcus Brutus is considered to be a hero, a defender of liberty. But that's not how Dante sees him, because Dante sees the Roman Empire as having a legitimacy that transcends a worldly one. It's now the Holy Roman Empire, so to some degree he's betraying the city of God. I'm not with him on this, but that's his understanding. So Brutus is also being flayed and chewed. And finally, Cassius, who's also a traitor to Rome. So 2 traitors to Rome. Now, when they get down to the bottom, in order to get to the southern hemisphere, the other side, they have to climb down Lucifer's back, and he has a shaggy back, and so it's like they have to grab the sides and pull down, and as they pull down, they suddenly pop up on the other side, and then they have to climb up. But they're grabbing the sides of this beast now, and coming out the other side, and it's a horrid sight. But as I say, he's frozen in ice. All they see on this side is his legs sticking up. Or sorry, on this side, they see him buried to the chest. He's got wings, and the wings that go over the ice make the rest of hell cold. So the ice, the cold air flies upward from the wings that are beating. And he himself is encased in ice up to up to somewhere his middle. And then when they climb there, then suddenly they come on the other side and the heads are gone. Like, what's going on? And they just see two legs. Well, that's because now they're on the other side of the ice. But let me read on a little bit here. He says, verse 4, just as when night falls, he says, keep your eyes ahead, does Virgil. See if you can spy him, the infernal one, just as when night falls on our hemisphere, or when a heavy fog is blowing thick, a windmill seems to wheel and when seen far off, so then I seemed to see that sort of structure. And next, because the wind was strong, I shrank behind my guide. There was no other shelter. And now, with fear, I set it down in meter. I was where all the shades were fully covered, but visible as wisps of straw in glass. So there are figures beneath the ice. There some lie flat and others stand erect, one on his head, another upon his soles, and some bend face to feet just like a bow. But after we had made our way ahead, my master felt he now should have me see that creature who was once a handsome presence. Lucifer, when he was the bearer of light. Lucifer, that's the name of it, that's what his name means. The luce again, and the pharaoh to bear. He bore light. He was a bright angel. Now he's Satan. He's the adversary. He was once a handsome present. He stepped aside and made me stop and said, look, here is Dis, Lucifer. Here is Dis. And this, the place where you will have to arm yourself with fortitude. O reader, do not ask of me how I grew faint and frozen then. I cannot write it. All words would fall far short of what it was. I did not die, and I was not alive. Think for yourself, if you have any wit, what I became deprived of life and death. By the way, there's a thought among the church fathers even that to look upon the devil would be the worst possible imaginable fate, to look upon him. Just as to look upon God would be of indescribable blessing, this would destroy your soul, just to look upon him. So that he's describing this. He's a living being. He's gone down to the realm of the dead, but he's looked upon this creature, this being, and there's something. He did not die, but what exactly was his state? And he describes himself as being frozen inside, even talking about it. So it's a psychological or a spiritual reflection on what he then saw. And what did he see? The emperor of the despondent kingdom, so towered from the ice, up from the mid-chest, that I match better with a giant's breath than giants match the measure of his arms. That's how huge he was. Now you can gauge the size of all of him if it is in proportion to such parts. If he was once as handsome as he now is ugly, and despite that raised his brows against his maker, one can understand how every sorrow has its source in him. I marveled when I saw that on his head he had 3 faces, one in front, blood red, then another 2 that just above the midpoint of each shoulder joined the first. So there's one at the top, and then there are 2 faces sort of below them like a triangle. And they there, and they at the crown all 3 were reattached. The right looked somewhat yellow, somewhat white. The left in its appearance was like those who came from where the Nile descending flows, so it's a darker color. And he has 2 wings, 46, spread out as broad as suited so immense a bird. I've never seen a ship that sails so wide. They had no feathers, but they were fashioned like a bat's, his wings. And he was agitating them so that 3 winds made their way out from him. And all Cocytus, this is the river in the underworld, froze before those winds. He wept out of 6 eyes and down 3 chins. Tears gushed together with a bloody froth. Within each mouth, he used it like a grinder. With gnashing teeth, he tore to bits a sinner, so that he brought much pain to 3 at once. The forward sinner found that biting nothing when matched against nothing when matched against the clawing, for at times his back was stripped completely of its hide. That soul up there who has to suffer most my master said, Judas Iscariot. His head inside, he jerks his legs without. So his head's wholly inside of it, and the legs are sticking out, and the claws are ripping the skin off his back. And of those two others with their heads beneath, the one who hangs from that black snout is Brutus. See how he writhes and does not say a word? It's talking about the speech and the capacity for speech here of betrayal. The other who seems so robust is Cassius. But night has come again, and it is time for us to leave. We have now seen everything. So just as he asked, I clasped him around the neck, and he watched for the chance of time and place. And when the wings were open wide enough, he took fast hold upon the shaggy flanks, and then descended down from tuft to tuft between the tangled hair and icy crusts, because now he is penetrating down through the ice, because there's just a little bit of space where the body goes in there, and he's pulling himself downwards. When we had reached the point at which the thigh revolves, just at the swelling of the hip, my guide with heavy strain and rugged work reversed his head to where his legs had been, and grappled on the hair as one who climbs. I thought we were going back to hell. Hold tight, my master said. He panted like a man exhausted. It is by such stairs that we must take our leave of so much evil. Then he slipped through a crevice in a rock and placed me on the edge of it to sit. That done, he climbed toward me with steady steps. I raised my eyes, believing I should see the half of Lucifer that I had left. Instead, I saw him with his legs turned up. And if I then become perplexed, do let the ignorant be judges, those who can not understand what point I had just crossed. What point had he just crossed? Well, he just crossed and went through the crevice of Satan's backside. At the bottom of hell is Satan's anus. Revolting. Disgusting. This is that's it. He's gone there. Now, in later writers like Beckett's Waiting for Godot, there's a lot of scatological stuff, and it's related to evil and excrement connected to this. Scatological.